Hey guys, Brian Schultz here with the Actually Tiny House Project, where we are exploring smart, simple, sustainable tiny house design and giving you some building tips along the way. Now, today what I want to talk about is one of the most important steps and the first step in building your tiny house, which is leveling your tiny house trailer. This is extremely important to do correctly because if you support the weight of your tiny house trailer wrong, or if it's not level, you can create errors in your build, but more importantly, you can create structural or even safety issues. So super important to make sure that you're leveling your trailer right from the beginning. Now, first step, before you even pull your trailer into your tiny house location, is to level the two tracks where your wheels are going to be. You want to dig down to bare earth and you want to level these to each other so that when your tiny house comes into place, it's going to be mostly level, and then all you have to do is crank your tongue jack here up or down to level it forward and back. Now, once you've done that, next thing you can do is identify where you're going to support your trailer from. And the best place to support a trailer from is 25% in from either end. If you've got a really short trailer like we do, you can go a little bit more towards the ends. But what you want to avoid here is what I see some people doing, which is jacking their trailers up so the wheels are off the ground and then supporting it on blocking at all four corners. Trailers are not designed to be supported that way, and that is opposite the stress that's ultimately going to be on the trailer when it's running down the road, which means that if you build your tiny house, even if there's not a problem while you're building it, and then you go ahead and take it off blocks that are supported at all four corners and put all that weight on the wheel, it's highly likely that you're going to get some stress flexion from the middle of the trailer outward, and that could create a structural issue either with the trailer or with the house. So coming 25% of the way in from the ends of the trailer supports the load a lot more evenly. Now, once you've identified where you're going to support from, now you want to think about what you're going to support onto. And in that case, what I like to do is dig down to bare earth. A really quick way to do that is just to scrape with a 2x6 and then check it with a torpedo level, make sure that your spot's nice and flat, and then you can get yourself one of those big round 18-inch pier blocks with a 10-inch spot on the top and put that in place. Also, you want to make sure you check that with your torpedo level as well, and that gives you a super stable platform that you can crib up off of. Now, for the cribbing, what I like to do is get myself a 4x10, and this doesn't have to be a really good 4x10, an old scrap one is probably fine for this, and cut it on the miter saw so I have 10-inch by 10-inch by 4-inch blocks, and I stack those up alternating until I get to where there's a space that's not big enough for that below the trailer. And now at that point, I want to think about leveling the trailer. Now, what some people will do is they'll use regular levels like this, or they'll try to do it with string levels as well. And the reason I'm not a fan of either of those solutions is because both of them are going to have a little bit too much error to get yourself a perfectly flat surface. And also, it's important to know that trailers aren't necessarily manufactured flat. So a much smarter way to do this is to rent or borrow a transit or a laser level and set it up away from your tiny house, and then shoot over to a stick that's sitting on top of the trailer at each of your 4 supporting points, and then start leveling the trailer with your leveling jacks or with a bottle jack, just to get all of those so they are exactly level. And once everything's perfectly level, now you can go ahead and get under your trailer and measure that last little space between the top of your cribbing and the bottom of your trailer. Custom cut yourself a little block that you can slide in there, and now you can go ahead and start building your tiny house. And at that point, the tiny house weight of the trailer is going to be supported on the wheels, but any additional weight that's coming down from the build is going to load onto those support points. And I think that's a really good strategy to kind of share the load between the wheels and the blocking. Now, you can also tune this up a little bit by taking a little bit more weight off the trailer just by letting some of the air out of the tires. And that's a good thing to do, you know, anytime that you're parking a tiny house for a while as well. And then when it comes time to move your tiny house, you can bring the air back up in the tires. You can use a bottle jack to jack up each corner just a little bit, and then you can pull that blocking out of there, and then you can just roll the tiny house right on out. Now, another thing that's important to think about is that just because you leveled it perfectly to begin with doesn't mean that it's going to stay level over the course of your build. So what I would do is go ahead and level it initially and then build your floor platform. And then once you've got a little bit of weight on there, but before your walls are up, set up your laser level or your transit again, and then go around and double check that level. And if it's a little bit off, all you've got to do is jack up the spot where it's a little bit off, and you can slide a little shim of plywood under there to get everything nice and level again. And then after that, you're going to put the walls in place, which is going to make it a lot harder to check it with a laser level. And then you're probably going to end up switching to a 6 feet level or a string level or some other leveling solution. But however you decide to do this, it's just really important to be meticulous about keeping things as dead level as you can, because if you get lazy about this and things get off a little bit and you're framing up standard walls as opposed to structural insulated panels, you can get pretty far off just by being a little bit out on your level, and that can really start to drive you crazy when you get up towards the top of your structure and nothing lines up. So another thing you want to think about, especially when your tiny house is finished and you've got a bunch of weight sitting on this trailer, is just being really safe whenever you're using your jacks. Because whether it's jacking up your house so you can take the blocking out so you can move it to a new location, or you've moved it to your new location and now you need to jack it up to put your blocking underneath it, you've got a tremendous amount of weight. And because jacks work with mechanical advantage, it may not be obvious that you're creating an unsafe situation. Now, the thing that you really want to avoid here is just putting a bottle jack on the ground and putting a 4x4 on top of it and trying to jack up your tiny house trailer. If you do that, I guarantee that at some point that's going to kick out. And even though your tiny house is sitting on wheels and you have your tongue jack in place, so it's probably not going to crush you, that's still a huge amount of force to kick that jack out and potentially create an injury. So when you're jacking up your trailer to get your blocking underneath, you can take advantage of your tongue jack here a little bit and use that to crank it up, because obviously it can support that weight, because it can support that weight going down the road. And then you can crib up next to your blocking location and then put your bottle jack on top of that and then jack up that way, and that's going to be a much safer solution. Now, speaking of safety, whenever you're doing an operation where you're moving a tiny house and you're using a lot of leverage and a lot of mechanical advantage, it's always a good idea to designate one person to be in charge of the operation. I've seen way too many situations, not just with tiny house moves, but just in construction in general, where people invite a bunch of friends over, nobody's really in charge, nobody's willing to be assertive, and people are doing things that can create unsafe situations for other people that are working at the same time. So make sure if you're working with something really big and heavy that you have one person who's in charge and is willing to give the orders, and everybody else can stay out of the way. So other than that, I would say my final advice here is just to really be meticulous about leveling your trailer. Make sure you're safe whenever you're working with jacks. Also, make sure you purchase a trailer that's well made and strong enough for your tiny house in the first place. It is always worth paying the extra money to get a heavier duty trailer with heavier axles, and also, if someone in your area can manufacture one, a tiny house specific trailer like this Iron Eagle tiny house trailer here, definitely money well spent. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Also, think about checking us out on our website, which is actuallytiny.com, where we've got a bunch more tiny house videos and a growing library of tiny house resources. You can find us on Instagram at actuallytiny, where we post a daily build blog of everything that we do here on the tiny house, including time-lapse videos. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Take care, be safe, and have fun building your tiny house.